In the last video, we've shown several issues that are hidden inside the useEffect data fetching pattern. In this video, we're going to see how React Query will help us address all of those issues with a single hook. Because React Query is not built into the React framework or to the React library, we're going to go ahead and install that first. I'm going to kill my application and then we'll run npm install at 10stack/React Query. And we're looking for the 5th version, which is the latest version of the library at the time of recording this video. So I'll go ahead and run that. And once it's there, I'll just go ahead and run my application again. And let me go ahead and close it. And now what we need to do is go to our main.jsx file. We're going to create a query client and we're going to wrap our application with a provider. So right over here, I'm going to do const query client equal query client, which will be imported from 10stack/React Query. And now over here, I'm going to import the query client provider, which also will come from the same library. And we need to provide the client value, which in this case is our query client. Let's close this and we'll make sure that it wraps our app component. And we'll go ahead and hit save. We get an error here. Class constructor cannot be invoked without new. So this needs to be called with new query client. Hit save. That error goes away. All right. Now let's go back to our bookmarks component and let's start replacing this with our React Query replacement here. So over here, I'll do const and we're going to do some data destructuring, but we'll get to that in a second. And this will equal use query, which comes from 10stack/React Query. And this function here actually takes a bunch of props that we're going to pass into this object right here. The first being the query function. And in this case, we need to replace it with our fetch call right here. So I'll copy it and we'll paste it in there. And the other property that we need is something called the query key, which in this case, we're going to call this bookmarks, comma, whatever the category is, and add the comma right here. All right. So the information or the values that we need to extract out of this use query call is the data itself. So we're going to call or destructure out of the use query object here, the data, and we're going to give it an alias of bookmarks. And in that case, I'll go ahead and actually remove that state because we're not going to be needing it anymore. We can also replace this is loading with another value that we can get from here called is loading. And even better, we can also get the error out of that object right away. And then we can delete this state as well. Now we can get rid of this use state. And let's see, what else did we have to do here? All right, so all of this logic here now has been taken care of for us, and we can go ahead and delete it. I'll go ahead and remove that. We don't need it anymore. We don't need this comment anymore. And let's save and see what errors are we getting. Failed to load the data in promise. Okay, let's see, what did we do wrong? We get a couple of issues here. It looks like it's trying to load the application or to load the function over and over again, which we can disable by adding another property called enabled. And we're basically going to say, use the value of category to give us a Boolean value. And so if this has no value, that means this whole query would not be enabled. So if I save this and let's refresh, you see it only tries to load this once, but it doesn't try to keep loading it over and over again. But this issue is actually caused by also another thing that we need to add, which is basically this needed to be a function, which I missed to add in the first time here. If I save this, let's see what happens. If I reload, okay, we're not even trying to load the category. And if I click on any one of those, here we get the values. And as you can see, the loading state, the error state, the empty state, all of those has been taken care for us without all the logic that we had to create with the use effect. Now this query key here is basically what tells our application, or what tells React Query, that this is a separate request every time we switch between the different states here. The first time we're loading each one of those states. If I go to bookmarks, it takes a second to load, but then it gets it. Now if I go to movies, same thing happens again, but if I go back to books, it's not even gonna try to call the server again. It already knows that we already have the values for the bookmarks for that specific category, and it's not gonna try to reload it unless you specifically say that whatever data that we currently have is now stale, and I want you to get a fresh copy from the server again. That alleviates some of the load off of your server and makes sure that you're not just sending a bunch of requests. And the nice thing about this is if I try to use that same query in a different component, it will automatically know that we already have this data. We're not going to try to fetch it again from the server. I'm just going to present it back to you from what we've already cached in our internal storage. Now you could actually wrap this whole thing in a separate custom hook that you create yourself. So let's say I'm going to create another hook. I'll call it use get category bookmarks, and this will receive a category as input, and it will return all of that code right there. And now what that enables me to do is to come over here. I will just call use get category bookmarks. I'll pass in my category as input, and I'll extract the data as bookmarks. I'll extract the is loading state, and I'll extract the error one more time. Now, instead of having to put all of this in every single component that you want to reuse this data for, I just need to call this one liner, and it will give me all the data that I need. If I save this, let's make sure everything is still working, reload, go under music, and here we go, we get our bookmarks returned back. Now, once you're comfortable with fetching data using React Query, the next thing that you will do in any real life project is mutations. How do you actually add more bookmarks or delete a bookmark off of your listing here? And for that, React Query actually offers you another hook called the use mutation hook. And for that, I would like you to explore the documentation to figure out how you can actually use it for your project. I'm going to go ahead and push all of this code and make it available for you. I'll also make sure that the server application that I'm using here is also pushed and uploaded so that you can go ahead and experiment with this code base here and add the mutations for the project until you get it to a final state. Now, I also would have another final branch, which is going to be kind of like the full solution for what the full application would look like, but I would really advise that you do not look at it right away. First, because it kind of look overwhelming when you take a look at it first, but then secondly, because I want you to experiment on your own first. Good luck fetching data.